This is Aaron Levine, LG Insurance Agency, with another episode of the And Insurance Podcast. I have no clue what type of insurance I'm going to talk about today, but I'm hanging out with my favorite entrepreneur, Bret Morgan, and I have to call him an entrepreneur because I don't know what he's into these days. There's always something new on your plate, and I'm looking forward to catching up, to finding out what you have going on, what projects have been completed recently, and get a little status of what you feel like the local economy is doing here in and around Eastern Monmouth County and such. So thanks for hanging out today.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Aaron. It's exciting to I was so glad you finally invited me onto your podcast.
The last time we podcast was with Andrew, and I hate to say it, it was early COVID. We were supposed to do a podcast. I forget the name of that show. Totally local podcast with Andrew Talcott, and we were supposed to meet on the boardwalk, I think. Mm-hmm. And then things started shutting down, and we were like secretly whispering, "Are we allowed to go out in public?" And not knowing what was going on. It was like the first one, and that's what hooked me into this whole podcast business that I've got going on right now. And you were that guy.
Yeah, it was. I think I was crying that week because all of my businesses were cataclysmically came to a grinding halt, and yeah, I had a lot of time on my hands.
And you've diversified since then significantly, right? So let's go back to 2020. So your business is back in 2020. Were co-works, you had the farmers markets, right? And you had some other building investment interests as well at that time, right?
Yeah. So co-works, I guess we started that in like 2010.
Okay.
But then we opened up a space in Red Bank actually during COVID too. So we were fitting that out. That was exciting because we got shut down because of the construction moratorium.
Oh God, sorry, Danny.
But yeah, we did get that open. I think it was like September 2020.
Okay. So you have two co-working buildings right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have one in Asbury Park, which was the original,
mm-hmm.
and then you have your Red Bank building.
And then we have the Red Bank location on Monmouth Street.
Which is on Monmouth Street.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those are full right now? Like people are back in quote unquote office?
Yeah, especially during COVID, we saw such an influx in the area of people from like New York City and North Jersey moving down to the area. So we really didn't have like other than when we were required to be shut down.
Right.
When we reopened, it was like business as usual. In fact, we probably saw an uptick in business for people wanting private offices. So.
Right. And so right now, 2023, your private offices are pretty much full.
Yeah, I mean, we get vacancies once in a while, but they people in and out, and there might be an availability in like October, but it'll be filled by the time.
And are they like more solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, or you actually have like W-2 employees that are like, I don't want to be home, but I'm also not going back to Manhattan, and I'm just going to pay for this myself? It's
a little bit of both. I say it's a lot of solopreneurs though.
Okay.
Andrew actually is in that our Asbury space too.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a lot of like freelancers, small business, that type of like people that just generally as a parent of three who ironically enough I work out of my house. It can be challenging at times to get a little bit of a break at times. So
yeah, the reason I maintain an office is mostly so I can get out of the house. Mm-hmm. And I force some of my staff to come in, but the majority of my team is fully remote. And I've weighed and looked at the pros and cons of keep letting everybody stay fully remote, keeping everybody fully remote, or trying to bring everybody back into the office. And I'd rather the flexibility for myself and for my team to be able to kind of do what they need to do. If somebody needs to do a quote at 8:00 at night and sell some insurance at 8, that's great. They're home, right? That's the benefit to the business of having people be fully remote, is that time changes.
Yeah,
it's not your time is not as confined as it would be if you were a traditional office worker.
Mm-hmm. And you have to really, as a business owner, but also as an employee, to establish boundaries and because you could be working when the business comes in.
I'm terrible. I'm terrible about that.
I've gotten a pretty good habit of turning off email at a certain point, turning off notifications, things like that, to make sure you you need that shut off, or you just
not me. I'm fidgeting right now. Like my leg is going, so my hand's not shaking, but my phone and my watch and everything else is on the other side of the room, so I'm not distracted. Like, this is probably one of the only times when I'm sitting here having a live conversation with somebody with microphones and cameras that I don't have a device buzzing on me.
Ooh. No, I had to
It's
do
sleep
that
time
break.
too, but I don't shut it off. Unless if I'm with my kids, I'm pretty good with it. Trying to teach them the right way, right? To not be distracted around them full time because, it's rude. It's bad parenting at the same time.
It's tough. I mean, it's a world that we didn't grow up in. So
Right.
it's a lot of like
we're fully on demand with a lot of the things that we do.
But I struggle with being like a technologist and in like software and tech and everything as much as I have been over my life. But at the same time, I'm also like, get off the screen. You shouldn't be on a phone. You shouldn't be on a laptop.
Didn't you do one? You did a couple of times. You did some tech. You did some workshops, right? You did some. I don't know. Were they crypto related? You did some. You were doing at one point some technology related workshops where you were bringing in a panel of speakers and selling out rooms.
So with CoWorks, we would do classes and workshops.
Okay.
But I also produced an event called Asbury Agile for about 10 years. It was up until COVID.
Okay.
Where we would bring in, it was a one-day event. It started the first couple of years we were at the Watermark, and then we went to the Beer Garden in Asbury, and then the last couple of years we were at the Asbury Hotel, Asbury Lanes. And we were bringing speakers from like New York, San Francisco, Philly, and really just produce a one-day like conference around startups, tech, whatever the hot topics were at the time.
You're gonna bring that back?
People have been asking.
I just did.
I got a lot of varied interests at this point. So I mean, it's not off the table.
Right.
My partner and I have been talking about it a little bit. And
so how do you maintain your cool around everything you have going on? Right, you're a creative. You're always looking for what's next, but you also you've built some great programs. You've built some great businesses around what you're doing. One, how do you keep yourself focused and engaged on what you're working on, but also be able to multitask the way that you do?
It's a constant.
I'm going to sit back now.
Well, actually, let me break up my my chart. So a lot of it does start with like setting boundaries and not like turning off notifications. If I find myself on like Instagram or Reddit too much, I'll literally delete it from my app and be like, okay, you're not on this for the next 3 months. It's not on your phone. So really just like kind of hardwiring these behaviors into myself. Because I think a lot of us, we do have time. It's just look at your screen time and see where your time is going.
Nope.
And really, is it really like, is it doom scrolling the best use of your time as far as like if you're trying to build a business or you're trying to like grow something, if you're trying to spend more time with your kids, like is that really like where your energy should be going? Does it serve that purpose? As far as like processes, I mean, I'm very process oriented where I like, and again, a lot of this is always work in progress, but if you do something more than once, I try and document it. I try and create a system around it, because even if I'm the one doing it, eventually it's something that you can hand off to like an employee, executive assistant, and really it's just getting stuff out of my head and onto like into like Google Docs or Asana. So really that's kind of how like I do it, and then just surrounding yourself with people that are aligned that way and get it, because that's the easiest way to really grow, is to build a good team of people, whether it's partners, whether it's employees, whether it's contractors or team members that you can just like pick up the ball and all run in the same direction.
So I think you said, your culture, right? You're culturally aligned with the people that you surround yourself with, right? And everybody's going to be similarly task related and focused around what's going on and understanding the boundaries, right? You're setting your ground rules early for here's how and here's what we're going to do, but also systematizing it and creating those processes, which is phenomenal. I think that's one thing that I struggle with. And I'm sure I have many things systematized, but they're still up here. And I allow a lot of freedom in my organization instead of fully processing and having all the processes written out, which most of them are, but I'm sure there's a lot of deviations that we're working through, and I would cringe if I actually looked at it. So it's awesome that you're able to put that in place, because that allows you to continue to diversify yourself.
Yeah, and it's constant iteration and constant trying things that work, and sometimes something will work for a period of time and then it won't, and then it gets replaced or you just get rid of it, and it's like I think it's just constantly always making efforts to work towards that is
Sure.
really the underlying process.
It's like
So-
that, make yourself 1% better every day, right? Figure
Yeah,
out how to
yeah.
do that what's that 1%, right? Somebody wrote a book about the 1% rule, I'm sure. You know, make yourself a little bit better, amend your processes, build your processes, you know, get your tasks aligned so that you're more efficient and effective in everything that you do. I think it's super important. And it's awesome the way you've been able to do it. So what are the projects that you're working on right now? I know you just finished or are still working with a cool project in Bradley Beach. I know you mentioned you have an Avon project going on. What are you working on? What's new?
So we, about a year and a half ago, I guess it was, we purchased a property in Bradley Beach. It was 9 bungalows on a single family lot. They were about 100 years old, falling apart.
So the bungalows were there.
So they've been there, I think 1919 when they were
No
built.
way.
But
That's awesome.
they were rough, really rough shape.
What kind of colony was hanging out there in the 1920s? I mean, that's, you know.
I mean, we actually, it's funny, we were in one of the local realtor offices and they had a postcard of the property when it first opened. And it honestly, like, other than just needing a complete update, it looked very similar in terms of like the trees and things like that were there. But yeah, so we took this property and we completely renovated it, reframed everything, like redid the sewers, redid the landscape. I mean, like dealt with like.
But you had to rehab it because if you knocked it all down, you wouldn't have been able to rebuild it.
Yeah, I mean, at that point you wouldn't. It's completely non-conforming and everything as far as zoning.
That's so
go.
cool.
But
cool.
But one of the things, I mean, that I like doing is, I mean, I walk into like an old warehouse or something that's like, and my eyes light up, and that's part of like my creative process. Is where I'll see something, I'll be like, oh my god, this is amazing. We could do this and this and that. And really, when I first like I used to ride my bike by that property, and then when somebody told me that the owner was thinking about selling,
right,
it like, and I did like a walkthrough of it. I was like, this is amazing. And so we just put it together. And fortunately, at the time, I had just met a couple guys through a real estate networking meetup.
Okay.
And then they had some, I guess, vertically aligned, like I guess, skill sets as far as capital raising and experience and things that I hadn't like necessarily been able to like handle on my own. So we all jumped into it together and yeah, we brought it to fruition.
So you have 9 bungalows in Bradley Beach, fully open and available for rent.
Available for rent. So we opened Memorial Day weekend this year. So we use them as vacation rentals during the summers and then off season. So starting October 1, we switched it over to winter rentals. And yeah, and it's we rent to a lot of traveling nurses and people that are doing renovations on their homes and stuff during the off season. And then during the season, it's a lot of families and people coming down needing like a vacation, like Jersey Shore for the week and yeah, and it's like a nice enclosed.
No bachelorette parties.
No, no.
You're not taking the call. Hey, I want to rent out all 9 bungalows for one weekend. You're like, no, we're out on that one.
We'll do if there's like a wedding group or family needs a place to stay and stuff. We've had a lot of that, especially in like the off season, like in September. But
what a cool alternative to staying at a hotel or a resort, right, where everybody can be together but not be together.
Yeah, and that's exactly
because I don't like people. I want to be by myself. But if like all right, if there's 9
I love
houses,
my relatives,
then,
but I love them over
you
there.
know, as long as I can close the door and lock it and stay away from people, I'm fine.
Yeah, so it's like a really unique space where, I mean, everything was like upgraded. Everything is like, it's like an upscale like bungalow 4 blocks from the beach, and everything from a 1-bedroom to a 3-bedroom. Washer, dryer, like all the kitchen amenities. We travel a lot, so I've stayed in Airbnbs and vacation homes for months on end all over the world. Right. And so I kind of have it. When we went into it, I'm like, okay, I know what we need as far as like appliances, as far as like making sure it's stocked with like certain dishware and things like that. Sure. It's all the little amenities that it's really easy to miss if you haven't actually done it.
Got it.
So.
But when you have 9, you can create a system, you can create a process that's repeatable, you know, and scalable at the same time, which is more beneficial than somebody buying a single family residence and trying to then turn it into a vacation rental and hope to hit the lottery with it, right?
Yeah, and we've we're just at that kind of tipping point of having like scaling, like to being able to like have like economies of scale to be able to we have a cleaning staff that really is there. They're not full time with us, but they're there like couple days a week. We have a handyman on site pretty much on demand as needed. So we're at a point where we are able to start to leverage those economies,
Right.
which, yeah, you wouldn't be able to do on a one or two, like if you
right.
have 1 or 2 properties. So.
Yeah, which is great because then it allows you to then take next steps if you want to continue down that path of vacation rentals, because you have this system already built. So it's easy to pluck off other properties in
which
the area.
we are actively looking.
I'm sure
we've identified a few. And, we really like hotels and like old hotels and motels that are like good locations close to the beach, and those are the types of things that we're really starting to look at and identify for like a next move.
That's awesome. So what's going on in Avon?
So there is an old bank building that has been abandoned since 2017.
Okay.
I think I was in the building about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer at this point. We currently, one of the projects that we were working on a couple years ago and unfortunately didn't happen was like kind of like a hybrid of like a micro food hall / restaurant / like bar concept in Asbury. We had a location. It didn't end up panning out, but thank God, because it was right before COVID, I would not.
There's a coffee shop, right? You had the coffee shop and the.
We had the coffee shop in the co-work space. Yeah. This is a totally different project.
Okay.
But we so we had this bank building. It's an iteration of that idea, so it's going to be less food hall and more just restaurant with a bar.
Okay.
We started.
Sounds way too plain for you.
But it'll be cool. It's an interest. Like I'm totally stoked about the project. I've been so. In the past year, we've been going through our approvals and really just navigating that process.
Right.
So I haven't even jumped into the creative stuff in like over a year on that project.
Gosh, that's awesome.
But really, it's been a lot of like planning boards and calls with lawyers and spreadsheets. I was on an Excel
and writing
it was on an Excel model right before I came to this.
Of course,
to get the bank something to keep them happy. So it's but we got our approvals over the summer.
Cool.
So now we're just waiting on some other stuff from the borough to really kind of get the green light to start to push forward. So yeah, it's like a 130 seat restaurant with a bar. It's seasonal liquor license on Main Street in Avon. The project right now is called Sylvan Hall. The name may stay. The name may not. We'll see when we get into like the branding and creative.
Sure.
We as far as timeline, we don't have a firm timeline yet, but probably I'd say at the earliest next summer, next fall. So
that's so cool.
But yeah, I like the slow pace. It's
listen, you keep moving. I'm very static in what I do. I try to look for different opportunities, but nowhere near as open and willing as you. So I love listening to this conversation and getting to hear the projects that you're working on and where your brain is going a little bit. And I have no clue what's going on up there. There's quite a bit, or there's not much at all. One or the other. I'm not sure, but
like a dog
I need you to put something.
Bicycle.
I need you to put something out there, and it's not the fact that it's a dog chasing a bicycle. It's because so many young entrepreneurs, and I see people when they talk to you, they light up, that you've been able to create this success, right? So this is the advice portion of the show is how do you tell people that are picking your brain about projects that you're doing and the work that you've been able to create, about how to start building their portfolio and get their businesses off the ground?
I mean, a lot of it comes down to mindset.
It's a lot of deep breaths. I'm sorry for those deep breath questions, but
it's a very loaded, or it's not loaded, but it's a very complex.
It's very open ended. You can take it wherever you want to take it.
I would say it comes down to mindset. I think and I do a little bit of writing. I started a Substack probably about a year ago to kind of talk about some of these topics.
Awesome.
And a lot of it is, first off, I just get excited with, like, even if it's not a project I'm involved in or doing, when I talk to somebody and they're like, hey, I want to do this or I want to do that. I'm like, that's amazing. Here's like what advice do you have? I'm like, oh, you could totally do this and this, and I will go off for hours. And it's because
It's
building
one of those you asked me, and
building a business is a very creative process, but it's also formulaic where you're always going to need like you have to have something that people want to buy at the fundamental level. So you need a product development or finding product market fit. I think that's what they like to call it now.
You have to solving a problem.
Scratching, finding like whatever, selling paint, aspirin or whatever. That's like much better than selling like something that people don't need.
Right.
Is a lot harder. What they would like is a lot harder to sell than something that they're like in excruciating pain. It's like you're solving a pain point for somebody.
Right.
I think then there's sales, there's market. You have a great product, nobody knows about it. You're dead in the water. Like that's.
I mean, I get roped in on Instagram all the time. I'm such a 2 a.m. shopper.
Oh, the DTC stuff. It's damaging.
What did I buy today? What's showing up tomorrow on that truck?
Yeah, I've had stuff show up at my door. I'm like, did I order that? like, oh yeah.
So it's good marketing. They figured out something that I kept looking for, right? Because they're following us everywhere we're going.
Yeah.
Pixels are dropped everywhere.
Yeah, it's
and listening to us wherever we go. I love all the memes of. This ad showed up and I didn't scroll for it. I didn't search for it, but I was talking about it.
It's I have no idea what's going on with our phones, but another reason to put them away at times.
Right.
It'll, if anything, it'll show up on your credit card statements every month. But I mean, I guess breaking it down to, I guess, piece of advice is just do it. I mean, we're brought up in this culture of like one of the things that I early on, so up until having 3 kids now, I used to spend about 3 months of the year out of the country. Mm-hmm. That was like a goal of like, hey, I got 100 years here on this planet. I want to travel. I want to run businesses, but I also want to travel. And I used to go down to Nicaragua a couple times a year. And one of the things that got me through a lot of the I guess the apprehension, the risk, and the fear was, okay, what's your best case scenario? Whatever business you have takes off, you make $100 million, you never have to work again. I would like move to Nicaragua, build a house, and live on the beach. And maybe it won't be Nicaragua, maybe it'll be Bali or India or somewhere. But point is, it wouldn't that would be my end goal.
Right. And
then worst case, what would happen if like you're like in debt forever, you're $100 million in the hole, everybody hates you, your brand is tarnished, your business you're not allowed to operate like a business. Like, what would you do? Scrape up together money, move to Nicaragua, live on the beach. So and granted, you're not going to be living the same level of lifestyle, but I mean, when you start to realize that like your goals, like aren't that far different in a best case and worst case scenario, it really makes it a lot easier to. And I know I'm oversimplifying it with now, especially the 3 kids. It's a much different scenario.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you can approach most things where like, what do I really need? What's the worst case scenario? Is it really is it that bad, or is it I guarantee it's probably some middle ground. Maybe you have a little bit of debt and you need to go get a job and you need to like service that debt for a couple years or whatever, and you tried something. You didn't wake up 70 or 80 years old and being like, I had this idea, and you just like you tried it. Like, I'd rather try something and
try it
and swing and fail than try or not try rather, and just
not try, and then you think about it and you have only what if conversations with yourself for the rest of your life. Totally agree with that, right? And putting the effort forth, or at least putting the research into seeing if the idea is viable, I think is important, right? So the people that I had in here before you, well, they're nonprofits called Backpacks for Life. And one of the things that Bret was talking about is when he got home from Afghanistan and he was ultimately discharged, he was depressed. He was having certain issues. And then he performed a random act of kindness, which then sparked the creativity, which they then turned into a business in 2014 as a nonprofit, where they patented and built special backpacks for homeless and transitioning veterans. Like, random act of kindness turned into an amazing story for the two of them, for Bret and Alexa, and they were able to build this business up. And I still call it a business, even though it's a nonprofit. It's still a business, right? We still have to act like a business. They still have to make a living off of it because it's 100% their sole focus, But then they keep adding on to it. They're adding iterations and versions and ideas and everything going on into what they're doing. And it's cool to see that journey happen from depression to random act of kindness to success and then continuing from there. So, you know, if he didn't act on his idea, who knows where he would be today, because you know,
wouldn't exist, and a whole lot of people would not have been like served.
Yeah. So he wouldn't have been able to serve his community that they choose to serve. So cool, really cool story. I can't wait for that podcast episode to come out.
I want to hear it.
So, you know, again, it's getting into young entrepreneurs and people interested. And I forget who said it. Maybe it was Seth Godin or James Aldrich, or somebody said, you know, the average age of a successful entrepreneur is 50. Right? Like, or Gary Vaynerchuk. I think this is one of his, is, you know, don't quit because you're 45 years old. Don't quit because you're 50 years old. Like, you still have another 30 years to create success. So, you know, don't let age limit you and anything. And, you know, some of that motivation is pretty cool for anybody that has an idea and wants to develop an idea. But again, you got to bust your ass and put the fucking work in. And
nothing, you know, like
especially early on when you can't afford to hire other people and you don't have the right partners in place, you just gotta try it. You gotta grind.
Yeah, right? And you gotta put the work. You put your reps in, and it's like anything else. You get better and better. Like when you do something and it doesn't work, then the next time, I guarantee you, whatever made it not work, you don't do, and you're just constant pushing forward. And it's an iterative process. And it's
funny. I met with a prospect today, and you know, I've got a good solid team. The guy said, Aaron, I said, I'm only dealing with you. I said, okay, for now. I said, eventually you're going to like dealing with my team better, but you have my cell phone. You call me anytime. And the only thing I can tell you is that I will pick up the phone unless I'm with somebody else. And at a minimum, I'm going to call you back. And guess what? I don't have the answers. My team has the answers. So you're going to get to like them better, I promise. You know, it's a cool thing to say. And he remembers I made a sales call on him over 10 years ago. So I was a lot younger, a lot greener, a lot less knowledgeable in what I do. And, you know, the conversation that we had 10 years ago, very different than the conversation we're having today, because I come from a different point of authority and expertise and reputation, for that matter, right? You know, reputation follows us to everything that we do, and doing good really transcends and continues to roll with you, because people want to work with people that do good and have good reputations. And that's something that you have in the community, which is awesome, because people seek you out wanting to, you know what the next best thing is. Yeah, so we've delivered it all right here, you know.
This is the answer.
I'm not going to tell you where to find Bret, but, you know, he's usually riding his bicycle down by the beach.
No, it goes back to what you were saying before about the people that were in here before. They're doing one act of kindness. And that's really what it is you just be kind, and like kind in your business, kind in your personal life, and kind to yourself. I mean, that's important.
Accidentally solved the problem.
But I think that's really, it's,
you know, those are the best entrepreneurial stories, is you just stumble upon a way to solve a problem, and you know, you take off running with it.
And then in opportunities, they will find you, and it's
right.
And it's you just put yourself out there, and that's really the first step. And
all right, so we were talking briefly about the floodwaters the other week in Asbury Park, and how crazy it was, and it was like post Sandy. And pre-Sandy, post-Sandy, during Sandy, whatever it was. And, you know, with the way the water was, I was watching the photos of Lake Avenue, and I'm like, I'm like, I know that person canceled their flood insurance, and that person, and I'm like, please no claims. And just watching it all, it was absolutely incredible with what the heck went down last week.
It was, I think, my first thought was, I'm so glad I do not have an office on Lake Avenue anymore, because we used to.
That's right.
And and I remember we were doing our construction during Sandy, and I came down the morning after Sandy, and the owner of the building was up to his shoulders in the basement, stringing up electric to get pumps going. Right. And so that was one of those like Sandy moments that was ingrained in my consciousness.
Right.
And then when I started to see the pictures, and somebody was flying a drone, somebody was kayaking down Lake Avenue, I was like, oh God. that's
I mean, that's the
it's
best
hurricane
part, right?
Sandy.
When you get to have fun with it. I took the paddleboard out, and I had enough water in my backyard that my kids could paddleboard in the backyard.
Yeah, it's like snowing, but
Well, for us, they canceled school that Friday because of the flooding. There was no physical way to get the children to and from school because of the high tide cycle, and the amount of water that came in from the flash floods was incredible. So we had a flood day, which we acted like a snow day. We went out and played in the rain and went paddleboarding in the backyard.
yeah, we got a lot of rain really quick, and we like we were saying before, is I had 2 feet of water in my crawl space, and we're still getting it out. And
So we're a week later, and you're still pumping water out, right? Less than a week later, a couple of days, but there's nowhere for the water to go, right? So everybody with a basement, listen up. Make sure your sump pumps are working. Make sure you have a backup pump, and keep them running, and make sure you have somewhere to discharge the water. Like, I actually just bought a pool cover pump. I went on the website, the app that we all go on, and things show up the next day magically. I bought a pool cover pump, and I already have a 100-foot hose. Like, if I ever need to get water of anything, I just have a portable pump. It's like $50.
I got lucky because I don't even know if it was luck, but the previous owners of our house gifted me one because I remember there wasn't even this one. There was another incident like a year or two ago, whatever. And I just went I was like, I needed a pump, and I think everywhere was sold out, and I was just like, I need one. I don't need one in the next day or 2 days from now. I need one like right now. Right. And then I went into my garage, and I found a box. I'm like, that looks like a pump, and I opened it up, and I pull one out, and I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, the other issue with it, a lot of
purchase I would have ever made if I could purchase
the basement stuff is not covered well by insurance, right? So basements and water are not covered well by insurance. And, you have some water backup, some cleanup coverage that's included. But if you have a finished basement and you got that much water, you're, in most cases, not every case, but in most cases, people are shit out of luck when it comes to getting insurance to actually pay for it, because basements are frowned upon in the eyes of the insurance companies.
Can we get flood insurance in Monmouth County? Is that like a thing?
Yeah, flood insurance.
I didn't know if it was still.
I didn't have any flood claims from the last storm that came through. Some of them may have had some coverage in flood. I've got one house where it's almost a slab on grade. It's like elevated less than a foot, and they had about a foot of water in the house. But there's no flood insurance. It was technically an X zone, which is a low risk flood zone by FEMA standards. So the property owner doesn't carry flood insurance. We're waiting on the tenants to move out or get the rest of their stuff out so we can see if we can just dry everything out well enough. But yeah, so much water came so fast. Like, certain parts of this was in Long Branch, 2nd Avenue there was a river running down 2nd Avenue in Long Branch. And I wouldn't have been surprised if somebody wasn't paddleboarding or kayaking down 2nd Avenue or Ocean Avenue. I think Ocean Avenue was closed at one point also. So a lot of closures, a lot of fun, not a lot of fun when it comes to having to do your own cleanup. But clean it and dry it, super important.
I think you probably know about this because you're in the business. But one thing that I remember after Sandy, I was studying was the old flood. You go back like 100 years, 150 years, and you look at where there were lakes and rivers and flood maps for the area, and you could see like they actually have them on surveys where they literally just filled them in, built condos or houses on, and then everybody's like, I don't understand why it's flooding. It's because you're literally in a waterway.
You are literally in a waterway. Yeah. You're right. If you look at some of those old maps, you'll see creeks under homes. Mm-hmm. That was once a river.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think happens when you get 8 inches of water?
The water is going to come right back to figure out. Water always finds a way. We like water, but water is also probably the most expensive claim we can make, whether it's from the ground up or from the sky down. It's wild when it comes to that. But yeah, there's some cool old maps if you can find them that show where the creeks are and where lake beds are, and Freehold, New Jersey, for instance. You don't think Freehold is wet. Freehold is full of old lakes and creeks that only fill up when there's a ton of rain that comes down. It's wild. You're nowhere near the coast. There's no rivers. There's no big lakes in Freehold, New Jersey, but yet there's major waterways that have come through, and and live around there. So there's flood zones, high risk flood zones in Freehold where you think you're just high and dry. So
good to know.
Quite interesting. Check your flood maps. Bret Morgan, thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm glad to get an update on everything going on. Glad to get some advice out there for anybody with an entrepreneurial spirit. Reach out to us. Reach out to me. I'm happy to vet any ideas. I love talking to new entrepreneurs and new business owners and helping people get started off the ground with their insurance. And as Bret does with anybody's ideas, because you never know when he's just going to help you out or take it for that matter.
Yeah.
Bret.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This
Thanks
is great.
for coming, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Aaron.
See ya.